Scientific evidence requires scientific tests, and a scientific test to be valid, it needs to be verifiable by 3 points. It needs to be measurable, repeatable, and observable. Is there evidence for a stationary, horizontal plane, flat Earth? Scientific evidence. Well, we're going to talk about some tests that have been conducted that prove conclusively that the Earth is stationary. Stationary in relation to what we perceive or what we see moving in the heavens, which we call heavenly bodies, the sun, the moon, stars, etc. So in relation to that, it is stationary. And tests, many tests have been conducted, tens and tens of them, for the last 200 to 300 years, since the days of James Bradley in 1729, Astronomer Royal with his telescope, and then 150 years later, even George Airy with his telescope confirmed the same findings. Then we have Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale, Sagnac, and one of my favourites, Pier Luigi Ighina, a colleague of Marconi, which I will show toward the end of this presentation. Here is Ighina here, and he's going to take us through his laboratory. He proves scientifically, with verifiable, measurable, provable, repeatable tests, that the Earth is stationary. So what evidence do we have, though? Because most people conclude that terrestrial material matter always has the shape of spheres. The argument is then that the Earth rotating became a sphere, you see, when it was originated. This is erroneous. And they base this on observing the planets, etc., which they believe are terrestrial, which they are not. And they admit this. If you go to Wikipedia and look under Saturn and Jupiter, immediately in the first sentences you will see there that they are gas giants. So they have no corporal, material, terrestrial body at all. Neither has the Sun. It's hydrogen and helium. And neither do the others. The Moon is the same. They are celestial, luminous, sonoluminescent bodies. So the evidence is that the flat model is consistent with science, and the globe is not. And I'm going to show evidence for that today. I'm going to refer to the work of David Lapointe, wonderful scientist. Go to part 1, then part 2, then part 3. This one here, this is a recent video of his where he's put all of the highlights of his 3 presentations in the one. And I'm just going to get some snippets here, and we're going to show how the torus field, he's concluding that this is the atom. This is galaxies, this is the world, this is everything. The double torus. So what I'm going to show how this double torus fits into a single torus field surrounding this. This is the model that I've always referred to, I've always had. I have had no other models. This is the one. And this is the Ptolemaic model. I'm going to show how Ptolemy's model that was around for thousands of years prior to Copernicus is based on this, geocentric. The Earth is in between these 2 dumbbells, and it's a plane. It's a material plane, just like the rings of Saturn. And David Lapointe proves this. Now, David Lapointe, we will see his laboratory experiments here. So there's no escaping this. This you can do this with right equipment in your own home, I would say. So let's have a look at some of this imagery. All right, so this is the center here of the torus field, and what he's showing is here is where galaxies are formed. This is the center of all atoms, this plasma. Now he generated this plasma effect in the laboratory, in this glass encasement here with argon, hydrogen, helium and air. And these 2 dumbbells facing each other are torus fields. One positively charged, the red, and one negatively charged, the blue.
Reused in these experiments. This includes ordinary air, argon, hydrogen, and helium.
There's the plasma in the center. There's the dumbbells.
The spacing and orientation of the magnetic field emitters were varied in many ways as well.
That's interesting. He varied the effect by spacing out the dumbbells, as we will see, and their vector, their angles, and toward each other to manipulate the field. Here he is again.
But they also formed a disk of plasma around the nucleus, as well as ejection jets along the axis.
And here is where he gets his inspiration for
Pattern will also be discussed further.
his model, coming up in a minute. That's the effect of the arcing of the plasma. You see the rainbow colours. These are the colours of creation, the 7 colours. They're always there because light is electromagnetism. And you see the rings, the concentric rings. This is very important.
Yeah. Wow.
And this is where he got his inspiration from. So this is where his journey begins, basically, I guess, for the creation of the domes.
And once it was realized,
required for this theory was found in the dome at CERN. It was also discovered that CERN was not the only place with the required pattern. The pattern has been there for centuries at the Pantheon in Rome, which has been referred to as the Vault of the Heavens.
Okay, the Vault of the Heavens, very important. Look at that hole in the center. All domes have this because they are channeling electromagnetic energy. Notice the Vault of the Heavens. The vault and the firmament are two different things. Okay, so according to how I structure the universe in my models of flat Earth for the last 3.5 years.
Peter's Basilica.
Everywhere is this dome.
Basilica.
There's the hole.
Then one of my favorites was found at St. Paul's Cathedral in Malta. Notice the angels circling the hole at the top of the dome, and compare that to the glowing ring that is found inside the bowl-shaped magnetic field emitters in the vacuum chamber. Why are these angels on fire exactly where they should be? Much more on this dome and the others later in this series of videos.
Okay, let's jump forward. Now he shows on his bench, I guess you could say, he's showing the charged dumbbells here, and he's going to show how the energy works and flows through it.
These emitters all have the same basic properties, but they do vary in size, geometry, and magnetic field strength. The design and construction of these field emitters are covered by patents that have been filed in both the United States of America and internationally. No rights to the use of the technology covered by these patents is granted or implied, as clearly stated in the statement at the beginning of this video. Notice how these ordinary non-magnetized steel balls are held in place at the center or nucleus of these field emitters.
The point I want to make is this ball in the center. Yes, so there's an argument here. If the Earth were a globe, conceding that the Earth is a globe, it would still be stationary because either the dumbbells move or the ball in the center moves, okay? There's one concession there for the globe, but then there's many other problems. Galaxies, there you go, they're flat. So when the argument comes up that the flat Earth there's nothing else in the universe that is flat, well, that's not right because galaxies are spiral galaxies, etc. The Copernican heliocentric model supposedly is flat. All the planets revolve around the sun on a pretty much a flat plane with very little deviation. There is some deviation to the plane, of course, but it's still flat.
Wow.
It's astounding, because this is repeatable, it's observable, and there's no response to this in terms of experiments that prove anything contrary,
On and around Saturn.
And this is also very important. So we see, this is interesting because we've got flat and a sphere, okay? Now, the sphere is the most common form in nature. In fact, the dodecahedron is the master of the four polyhedra, which are the creators of the universe, which correspond with ether, the dodecahedron, the octahedron air, the tetrahedron fire, the hexahedron earth, and the icosahedron water. And they would correspond to ether, plasma, gas, liquid, and solid. So here we see flatness, okay? Just building an argument here, or just with visuals, and then we'll come to the crux of the matter.
Okay.
1703. Let's have a look at what we got there. Look at the jets here of these galaxies. Okay?
Wow.
Very telling. There they are in the laboratory. And we're going to see how these jets work in a minute.
Beautiful.
It's both magnetized and non-magnetized.
And here we go. What he's done now is he's put this glass in between the two bowls. What he's got is the positive on top, negative below, and he's got these ball bearings, these steel balls here. And you'll notice concentric rings around the center, okay?
Balls to form the amazing arrays shown here. The only thing holding these balls in position are the magnetic fields emanating from these two balls. Could this truly be the way that atomic and
Molecular structures are properly explained? I believe so. Let's take a look at the forces at work in the nucleus area of these bowl-shaped magnetic fields. Shown here are ordinary non-magnetized 5mm steel balls. These bowl-shaped magnetic fields induce a magnetic field into each steel ball, which causes them to repel each other while at the same time keeping the balls structured together. So this mysterious force not only causes the steel balls to become packed tightly together, but it also keeps them apart. Then it does this while at the same time forming a geometrically balanced pattern, just as we find within atoms and molecules. Notice the vibration in all of the steel balls as each new ball is added to the nucleus area. What we see at work here is what I believe would truly be defined as the strong force.
So what you can see here is the flower of life. In the center is the central ball, surrounded by 6. This makes the round table of 7. Surrounding 6 is always 12. And 7 plus 12 make 19, which reduces to 1. This is the 1. This is the pattern of all forms, like this. So the flower of life, the seed of life, the tree of life, all of the fruit of life, these are all these electromagnetic energies, shapes.
As
this is the one. Okay.
The strong force. Then we will take a look at some incredible cutting-edge research from scientists at IBM. This is an atomic force microscope image of the actual structure within a nanographene molecule. Now we see the image of the nanographene molecule superimposed on top of the array of steel balls that were formed in the nucleus area of the bowl-shaped magnetic fields. The steel balls are supported by a sheet of clear acrylic, which does not come in contact with the magnetic poles at all. Therefore, it is only the magnetic fields of the red and blue balls which are responsible for the shape of the patterns we observe here. Here we see 3 mm steel balls in the nucleus area of the magnetic fields. Notice how they can trade positions with the other balls in the array, but the basic geometric pattern is always maintained. Now let's take a look at how these non-magnetized steel balls form orbital patterns around these bowl-shaped magnetic field emitters. Again, notice how even in the orbital area, these magnetic fields cause the steel balls to be packed tightly together, and yet at the same time they repel each other.
Now, this is interesting because this leads me to the question of lands within concentrically going outward from a center. So this would be, say, land mass, this would be water, and this would be more land mass. Or this could be even ice, like the ring of Antarctica, if Antarctica were a ring which surrounds the Earth. I'm not too sure or pedantic about that. We just need to have a look at this, and this might bring some inspiration, but it could be a barrier of some kind. Concentric land masses around a kind of mandala. As you will see, the Earth is a mandala, as it's described in Bhagavad Gita. Bhumandala. Bhumandala. Bhu is the world, and mandala is, well, it's a mandala. So Jambudvip, so this island is islands within islands in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and all of these old books.
Even 25 mm non-magnetized steel balls follow these same rules. I believe it is time to reevaluate our theories of atomic structure and the forces that work therein. As you can see, a wide range of steel balls were placed around these magnetic fields with the same basic results. Here we see 5 mm non-magnetized steel balls forming a complex array of orbitals around the nucleus. Notice how the steel balls all repel each other. The red and blue balls are identical in construction and magnetic strength. The only difference is the magnetic polarity of the balls. The red balls are north magnetic polarity, and the blue balls are south magnetic polarity. Notice the various ways in which these balls will bond with each other. Here we see how the large and small balls interact with each other magnetically. Notice how the small blue ball is forced to flip over and then floats within the large red ball. The small red ball responds quite differently, as you can clearly see. Then we find the same rules in effect within the large blue ball. Now you see how the orbital distance of the small ball set is determined by the spacing between the large red and blue balls.
Wow.
So you can see the plane of inertia there. It's right in between the eye of the storm of the vortex, that everything is vortexual, all energy. See the work of Walter Russell. And he always spoke about the red and the blue, red shift, blue shift.
This same principle applies to magnetic balls placed within the orbital equator area perpendicular to the large.
So he said, orbital equator area. This is the plane of inertia. See the work of Ken Wheeler. The plane of the inertia is a what? It's a plane. The planet is a flat horizontal plane.
In this demonstration, a singular magnetic ball is held in place by the magnetic poles, and then a second magnetic ball is added. Then it was discovered that this orbital effect is there, even when the polarity of the magnetic field emitters is reversed.
So here we see an argument for a convex spherical globe Earth, but it would have to be stationary because one moves, the other does not. So it could work, but how would gravity work and all its other complications, the so-called force of gravity, especially at the equator of the ball, because there would be more differential of force problems with that.
Wow.
0.2 millimeter steel balls into the large holes reveal the true forces at work in the Southern Crab Nebula.
Here you go. There's the dumbbells, it's all there. You can see how those balls interacted with the lines of force, so-called lines of force. It's all torus fields. So this is ferrofluid. The balls are suspended in the fluid. We know the Earth's core is of iron. That's ferro. Ferro is iron. And so the solid, firm parts of the Earth floating on the waters would be a good way to visualize this.
You see ferrofluid at work, showing the magnetic patterns formed within these bowl-shaped magnetic field emitters. Then, for the very first time, it's now possible to actually repel non-magnetized steel balls with a static magnetic field. The magnetic field emitted from these bolts induces the magnetic field into the steel ball and then repels it along the axis of these magnetic field emitters. This knowledge is the key to understanding how these magnetic fields confine the nucleus of all matter, from electrons to galaxies.
Electrons, atoms, to galaxies. This is the force. May the force be with you. This is the only force that exists. Electromagnetism. That's the trinity. Dielectricity, magnetism, electricity, in that order. Those are the three field modalities of the ether. Light.
In this experiment, the anode, or the positive side of the high voltage electrical supply, has been disconnected from the lower part of the vacuum chamber into a bar-shaped magnet along the axis of the matter being measured. There are in reality...
So basically this is the model I've always used, and probably inspired by watching Primmerfield's the first time around about 2011. See, when these were published, 2013, yeah. I remember watching this years ago. And so when Flat Earth came along, this is it. I realized that this is the Ptolemaic astrological model and biblical model. It's every model. The Hindu, it's every model is this. This is an apple. The apples of Apollo, the golden apples. The cosmic egg model. This fits in with the Jewish Kabbalistic 10 concentric ring model. This is the firmament. And this is the vault of heaven. Probably what they consider to be the Kuiper belt. And this would be like the Van Allen belt. I'm not sure. The impenetrable Van Allen belt. And this firmament supposedly was created on the second day of creation, because the heavens, the vault was first. Heavens and the earth. So the plane was already there. The plane of the earth goes across here. And this is the tree, the Yggdrasil tree in the center, the tree in the book of Daniel. Every tree. It's like Jacob's lap. And life ascends, going upward into the heavens. Polaris is here. So the North Pole would be in the center here, in this little cup, little dome here. And then the stars, they are attached to the firmament. The Greeks taught that, the Bible teaches that. And also the sun and moon and the planets, the 5 planets. And somehow they are attached to this firmament here, which is convex, facing the earth, which would also explain why the South Pole around Sigma Octantis in the so-called southern hemisphere seems to circulate, because this is a trick of light. It bends and distorts the pole and makes it appear as though there are two, but it's not. The disco lights in the disco, they also do this distortion. It's very easy to see if you follow the disco lights. Well, the dark energy is the ether. Dark light is the source light. White light is the force light. And that's dark energy, or what they call black holes, everything black, dark matter, dark energy, black, dark. All of this is relating to the true source, the true light, God, ether. And the waves of light generated through the ether, as sound is generated through the air, those waves, that is the light.
There are galaxies, two bowl-shaped magnetic fields around the nucleus that cause this measured shape of magnetic field, to a bowl-shaped magnetic field.
Yes, so you see the main torus field on the outside with the tree of life in the center, and here this is another system, a split torus, obviously. And so if there is convexity here to this in the Earth system, the Earth firmament, this would be the firmament in my thinking, then the trick of light, as we will see later on, an experiment with how convexity and concavity actually flip the object in its scope, in its view, upside down. You know, so there's definitely tricks going on. As to who can explain it, well, I can basically explain it. As we pool our knowledge together, we'll be able to advance in understanding how this firmament works.
Around the nucleus that cause this measured shape of magnetic field lines.
As you can see there, the outer torus field, built into torus fields, is what's called electromagnetic precession. And that's a very telling word. The Lemur frequency, electromagnetic retardation, it's another expression for it. Precession is very appropriate because in astrology we have what's called precession, where the zodiac belt is slipping continually in relation to the ecliptic. And this would explain precession as well, the torus field universe.
Here is the basic shape of the magnetic fields that emanate from a typical structure in space. Now let's examine some structures in space and see if we can't find evidence for this shape at work in galactic formations.
There it is. That's the plane of inertia. Flat disks, planet. And this goes with the theory of Pier Luigi Ighina, Italian scientist, which I will
Here's how we
show.
are mistaken in our understanding of the true forces at work in galactic structures.
There you go, the true forces of work in galactic structures. Pier Luigi Ighina also agrees with this. He studied with Marconi for 10 years, and they discovered that there are two energies, the Earth energy and the Sun's energy. And so they describe the Sun's energy as turning over a stationary Earth, as we will see in a minute. And so this compaction here on this inertial plane is where matter, so-called, is coagulated, congregated, condensed. It's an incandescent condensation, as Walter Russell will put it.
These large structures in space could not be explained by the currently accepted theory of gravity alone. So as we studied these structures, it was assumed that some extra source of gravity was required to explain how all this matter could be held in orbit around the central star in these galaxies. This is how the theory of black holes became accepted when trying to explain these structures. It was a totally reasonable line of thinking, but it was found that even using black holes with incredible gravity, we could still not explain how these large structures in space are held together and function. So the next mistake that we made was to assume that some other extra matter was there to explain these large structures in space. Along came our theory of dark matter. But even when we applied both the theory of black holes and dark matter to our puzzle, there still were some problems. It seems the universe itself was not only expanding, but that rate of expansion was increasing. To explain this, we came up with the theory of dark energy. So now we have invented three totally unproven theories to explain what we find in the visible and known matter in space: black holes, dark matter, and dark energy. But they are not required at all if you eliminate the basic misunderstanding of magnetic fields around the nucleus of all structures in space. Once you properly understand this revolutionary theory of how magnetic fields can cause not only plasma, but actual matter to form the structures we find in space, you will clearly see that black holes, dark matter, and dark energy do not exist at all. We made some fatal mistakes in our thinking. Matter can be ejected by these bolts.
And this is what he's getting at with his experiment.
Shaped magnetic fields. So now I'm going to show you magnetic ejection utilizing the CERN ball. So this one will shoot these magnets, ordinary magnets, about 25 to 30 feet across the room. If I have a large room, I don't have that big a room we're working in right now. So I'm just going to show you what I'll do. So hold it down here, and I'll just put it in through the bottom, through the hole in the bottom. A little tricky, it doesn't really want to go in there. It's kind of against it. But then you can get it to where it's a balance point, where it doesn't take any energy. But once you push it past that balance point,
bye-bye dark energy.
knowing that all matter has a magnetic component to it, you can now see how these incredibly strong, bowl-shaped magnetic fields in space could accelerate matter to nearly the speed of light without requiring external electricity, black holes, dark matter, or even dark energy. And non-magnetized balls to form orbital rings around the nucleus.
All right, so one more go over this. There's the flat plane. And what you see congregated in the center there is a misshapen flower of life. And this is how a flower of life is produced. There you go. All right, so what we've got here is the flower of life, which is so important in all the ancient cultures. It was the blueprint of creation. It is connected with Metatron. It is connected with the Kabbalah. There are 19 balls here, one in the center, surrounded by 6, surrounded by 12. This is King Arthur and his 12 knights, Jesus and his 12 disciples. This is creation. And this is how it is manifest on an inertial plane. That's the only place where matter can congregate. Its matter is congregating in disks, you see. And there might be some squareness to the Earth. I'm not saying that the Earth is just a disk. You know, I'm not even assuming that. I am assuming that the Earth is stationary because of all the scientific experiments that have been conducted. So that's a done deal. There's no argument. If you're going to argue, it's at the shape, not whether it's moving or not. Because let's go to the Earth is stationary. This is one of my videos I uploaded in July of 2017. Okay, so what we've got here then is Luigi Ighina in his laboratory. Now, what's significant about this experiment is that we can see it with our own eyes. We can't see the preceding experiments that have been conducted throughout history because the guys who conducted them, they didn't have cameras filming their tests, unfortunately. Here is inside the laboratory of Luigi Ighina, and he has connected this machine here to 2 antennas, one in the ground, one above the ground, one receiving Earth and below the Earth, one transmitting energy received from the sun. And both he and Mark, who worked together for 10 years, and they concluded from these tests that the Earth is stationary because the strobe lights in the laboratory show movement and between the 2 flashing currents of electricity. There is a rotating, it appears that the room is moving. And so Ighina says that this is what caused scientists to conclude that the Earth is turning, but they are incorrect because they see things in reverse. And so it's very interesting that this man has been able to prove the Earth is stationary. He is also famous in Italy for making an instrument which prevents earthquakes and another one which causes rain. And he has many times conducted these instruments with 100% accuracy, caused rain, earthquakes, and the presence of many people. In such experiment he conducted, he showed the sun night to the mayor of his town and many other important public, political and judicial to establish that infrared light back then, and we're going to see some infrared in a moment showing penetrating onto the Earth for 1,200 miles, showing a flat Earth. So there's the flashing lights, and he points to those lights and explaining to the interviewer that this is proof that the Earth is stationary because, as he says, the solar energy is rotating, whereas the Earth's energy does not have an extra rotation to it, because all toroidal electrical magnetic energy is rotating. So it's all moving. Nothing is not moving. So when we say the Earth is stationary, well, it's stationary in relation to what we perceive as moving above us. But there may be some kind of other movement of the Earth because everything is moving. But in terms of this solar system, it is stationary. So a flywheel, I guess, whatever encases a flywheel has to be stationary, or vice versa. A gyroscope. I always think of a gyroscope. All atoms, all cosmoses, all galaxies, they all resemble a gyroscope. And there's the movement. There it is. That movement there is what is deceiving scientists. That is the solar energy rotating. And there's all the strobe lights all set up. It's all very fascinating. There's the word stroboscopico. The scope. There it is. Now, I have made a video based on this, and it's in English. I've translated his speech. It's only a 12-minute video. I urge people to watch this. I'll put it in the description below. Here I am. As you can see, it's 3 minutes. This is the title. Please remember. There's me. Okay, so there's the title there. The Earth is Stationary by Scientific Experiment. Santos Bonacci. Have a listen to that. Give it a go, you know, if you're still on the fence.
Do it.
Yeah, because the tests have been conducted, whereas no test has there been conducted which proves conclusively, positively, that the Earth has movement in relation to the heavens. Sagnac, Michelson Morley, George Airy, James Bradley, all of these guys, they've done it, whereas all the Copernicans have with their moving Earth. Einstein concluded and declared once that no experiment has ever been conducted that can prove the movement of the Earth.
Yep. Gotcha.
This building here shows evidence that they know what's going on. Tree of Life in the centre, spiralling staircase and dome. Okay, so firmament-like structures on the inside. There's the Earth. There's the North Pole. Everything goes round and round.
Wow.
Like a merry-go-round.
That's beautiful.
And there's, yeah. So it's in your face. There's no doubt about it. They know that the Earth, that's why all these domes turn up. St. Peter's Basilica, etc. There's always these domes to channel energy. It's to bring energy into those edifices, which is God energy, and that's why people have such wonderful mystical experiences when they go into cathedrals. Another thing I want to show you from this video is this experiment. I was talking about the trick of light of the dome, the firmament being convex. Well, just have a look at what concavity does here in this experiment.
Today I want to share a piece that I had my students take a look at, a study of lenses and mirrors. Now, it's a fun piece, and it simply gets students thinking a little bit more about what happens to light when it's reflected off different shaped surfaces. Now, let's take a closer look at it. Here's the eyepiece. This is what you look through. And when we push this button down, this light goes on. And at this end, we have a concave mirror. Let me continue turning it around here. Take a look at the other side. Pretty much the same from either side. Once again, I push down on the button. The light goes on. And what I'm really concerned with is looking through this eyepiece. So let's take a look together. Now I'm going to push down on the button a few times. I'm going to flash this light on and off. And if I look outside the eyepiece, push down the button, we can see that's the bulb we're looking at. And once again, from in the eyepiece, push down the button, there's the bulb. Now what I want to do is I'm going to unscrew that bulb, push down on the button again, and hey, there's the bulb again. Where is it coming from? I look outside the eyepiece, it's not there. Look in the eyepiece, push on the button, and the bulb appears. So as you can see, there's no bulb in the socket, but yet pushing on the button and the bulb appears. Let's put the bulb back in again, push it down, there it is.
Oh my gosh.
Push it back out, push down on the button, and it's still there.
Oh my.
So the whole question is, where is this coming from? Well, the first part of the answer has to do with that mirror at the end of the device. It's a concave mirror, and we know that concave mirrors will reflect an image and invert it, which means it's going to flip it upside down. The rest of the explanation has to do with that box that light and socket is sitting on. Now, if we were to take a closer look inside the box, we would find a second bulb and socket mounted directly underneath the first one, upside down. Here's a simplified version of what's actually going on. Here we see the two bulbs. They're not lit. I push down on the button, they both come on. But we don't see that second bulb. Now, if I unscrew the top bulb and I push down on the button again, that lower bulb, which is upside down, will light up and its image will be reflected and inverted, or in this case, turned right side up, so that it appears where that upper bulb is supposed to be sitting. Now let's take a closer look at this piece. Here we can see both bulbs, and if I push the button down, they'll both light up. There we go. And if I remove that upper bulb and push down on the button, just the lower bulb lights up, and that's the image that is reflected and inverted so that it is going to appear in that empty socket at the top. Looking at the bulb from a different angle, it doesn't work. I have to look straight on for that bulb to appear. And the eyepiece puts us in the right position for this to work.
So you see, he said there that he had to look straight at it. So you see how perspective can distort reality. Just your perspective, it's so limited. So if he doesn't look through the eyepiece, he won't see that phenomenon. And so wherever we are on the earth, when we look at the north and the south and the equator, we see this split sky, giving the appearance of two poles. I mean, there could be two poles in some way. I don't know how to explain that, but when you look at this natural experiment, and this is the model of all energy, well, then you would prefer to use this model, wouldn't you? You know, it just makes sense. And so what I want to show now is Stan Tenen. Have we looked at Stan Tenen?
No.
Stan Tenen is a Hebrew scholar. This is what's interesting, because they have inside knowledge. So let's see what model he uses for the cosmos. He uses an apple, a red apple. Let's have a listen to Stan Tenen.
What you realize is that this can be very much like a kind of bowling ball, where if you could put your thumb down into the middle, you could grasp between each of these edges, and it would look, if I can display it for the camera, just like a hand. Remember, my thumb is going into the middle, and what I'm saying is that each of these regions, from here to here, would be a hand. And of course, there'd be three hands as I go around. I'll show it to you from here. There's three hand-shaped sections. And so there'd be 4 fingers in each one, the thumb in the middle. There'd be 12 fingers around the perimeter. And thus you have 12 tribes around the seed center, the star, the tabernacle, if you'd like. In other traditions, there are 12 apostles, there are 12 knights around the round table, there are 12 imams of Shia Islam, there are 12 houses to the zodiac. There are a whole number of 12 around 1 forms. And in the middle, of course, if we would open it, this disc, I don't know if you can see this very well, but the disc is the flat earth. This is where, I'll put it inside, maybe you can see the hand in there. Put the hand inside. This disc becomes the earth. There's the sun. This is the heavens, the dome. And what we've got in our model, again, is a model hand. Now, why a model hand? Well, now we're going to get back to the discussion.
Okay, I urge you all to check out the work of Stan Tenen, please. So here he shows what model the Hebrews teach. The cosmic apple, apple of Apollo, the cosmic egg, toroidal field, the torus, hence why the Torah in Judaism is so important, because everything is based around the torus field. An atom is a torus field. And when the Egyptians say all is atum, that's what they mean. Everything is a self-similar fractal universe. As above, so below. It just repeats, and it's self-similar everywhere. And so that's what Torah backwards means rotate. So the torus field rotates. And you see the disk that he's talking about, the flat earth, is intersecting right through the middle as we have it, and as I have it in my model, which is based on the torus field. Now, if the earth were a globe, how could we, for instance, we're going to have a look at some infrared pics here. This is the Mississippi River, you can see here. This guy is traveling west around about, he's in the Midwest, around about Oklahoma, flying west and looking north. And what you'll see, folks, with this infrared camera, is he will be able to prove that he can see 1,200 miles right to Hudson Bay, past the Great Lakes, Michigan, etc., Toronto, and you can see right over into Hudson Bay. So here's the Mississippi River, and you can see he's right about there around Oklahoma area. Let's have a look at this.
Dark river there, that's Mississippi. Now we're starting to expand a little bit more. There's some haze on the window. It was scratched. Something was very annoying.
I don't know whether you can hear this guy. He's narrating. He's giving a good explanation of what he's seeing.
The camera around. I'll try to move that haze. Look at that clarity. Wow. See, I've increased contrast in Adobe Premiere. Incredible. Look at that river. That's the Mississippi. And that's what you see, Illinois, right there. Incredibly contrasting, folks. Look at that. Wow. Yeah. I'm using a Sony AX53 camera.
I think he just said he's using a Sony MX3 camera.
With a 950 nanometer infrared filter.
With an infrared filter.
The zoom capability is about 30x.
So there's a flat Earth. Infrared does not have the ability to straighten the Earth. It's not going to happen. It's just that it penetrates. It penetrates all the particles of molecules of water in the air and the density and the mist, etc., and it just penetrates because it has a red wave, and it's a long wave. It reaches through particles. Okay, let me try and go forward.
What we're doing.
Now what he's going to do is he's going to show how...
Okay, so let's have a look at some analysis.
So there's Hudson Bay. He's got Hudson Bay from Oklahoma, folks. What I imagine to be Oklahoma. I don't know whether he stipulated in this video. Please watch it. Flat Earth Exposed. I just don't know what to say. Incredible flat Earth footage. And he's just showing here. There's Lake Superior before it. There's Lake Superior, and there's Hudson Bay. There's about, what, 300 or 400 miles just in that. Let's have a look at Hudson Bay. Down here in Mississippi, he's looking 700 miles away over to Lake Superior, and then beyond that to Hudson Bay, folks. If there's no curvature there, the Earth can't be concave, you know, and obviously can't be convex either. There's the sort of fall. There's the sort of fall it would have to have. You know, that fall, that arc there. That's just, it's too much. You know, he's actually pointed out that beyond the lake, which you can see, is 1,700 miles. So what you just saw was he was somewhere around here, Mississippi, and looking right up here, all the way over to Lake Superior and beyond. Okay. Now, here's another interesting pic. Pic de Finistrelle, Pic Gaspard, Écrin. 443 kilometres of current world record of distant landscape photography. How can this be possible? If you're standing on the Pyrenees in Spain, looking over to the Alps in France, and seeing all of the peaks and beyond, because obviously you must see beyond. If you can see down to your eye level and the Mediterranean flat in between for 200 miles beyond, how can such a thing exist? How can it be? It just can't be. Please check out this website, Beyond Horizons, Pic de Finistrelle, because that's the peak of the mountain called Finistrelle, which means little window in French. All right, so please check that out. And again, there's many other evidences. Here is a picture of Reunion from Mauritius. That's 210 kilometers, folks. You can see there it is. It's just standing out of the water at eye level. I mean, that's flat. That's very, very flat. Here we see Oahu, visible from Kauai Airport, 90 miles away. There it is, right up at eye level. This is interesting. From Anchorage, Alaska, you can see Mount McKinley. It's pretty much standing up in the heavens. No fall. You shouldn't be able to see it at 140 miles. It's 190 miles away, rather. Not possible on a globe. Here's the 7 states. So you can see Tennessee on the left, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama. So this must be from the 7th state would be, it's 7 states anyway. So I'm not sure from which they're filming that, obviously from the Western perspective looking east. Okay. All right, so this is interesting. Samuel chapter 2, verse 11 uses an expression open country in modern translations, whereas in the old Bibles, look at this, flat earth. What is the flat earth doing in the Bible? Well, obviously the clever Copernican brainwashed people today will say, oh, yes, well, they were stupid back then. You know, they couldn't even write. They were just... Our ancestors were just stupid, weren't they, to believe in the flat earth and to teach it. Well, they weren't stupid. Evidence shows conclusively that the DNA was better and they were much more conscious, used all of their brain capacity, not 10% or 1%. They were clever enough to make pyramids and lots of other fabulous technology. You need to watch not to be manipulated, as Pythagoras would tell you. To be successful, manipulation should remain invisible. The success of the manipulation is guaranteed when the manipulated believe that everything happens naturally and inevitably. In short, manipulation requires a false reality in which its presence will not be felt. There's the dome of heaven. Obviously it's concave here, but there is concavity and convexity to the structure above our heads, folks. There's both.
Yep.
Now, I want to conclude. There's that building we saw before, very interesting, that spiral, and then look at this angel at the top. What's that doing? Looks like an angelic creature. That would be Brahma, Polaris, Jehovah. Bhagavad Gita says that the earth is called Bhumandala, and so it is a mandala. It's a mandala. Please study the Sri Mandala and all of these different variations of mandalas. The earth is a mandala. It's called Bhumandala. Bhumandala. And they also say that the sun, Vivasvan, or Rama, there's many names, Indra, many names for the sun, and it circles on a ramp, and as it goes around the Tropic of Cancer, it's high, and then it ramps down to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then it's lower and wider, and that's why it reaches the outer limits around Australia and everything. And then Cancer, it's very, very high, and it goes down a ramp from the solstice of Capricorn down here to the solstice of Cancer up here on a ramp, and it's on a rail. Look at this rail, It says it's on a rail around the ring of Antarctica. That's Bhagavad Gita, folks. It's not me. There's the eye of God, the eye of Ra, and its dome, It's all like this. There's the domes. More domes. Channeling in energy, magnetic energy, spiritual. Dome, domain, domicile, dominion, kingdom, wisdom. So I want to conclude now. There's some beautiful images of a flat earth. These are photos, no tricks, no fisheye lens, just natural. The sun's never far away from the earth. It's just above it. It's all flat. It's all flat. So Let me just finish off now with how the trick has been played against us. So do you see these slides?
Yes.
Great. There's the concentric rings of the dome surrounding the Earth. All of these cosmologies, rings within rings, Ezekiel's rings. This is how it works. They put a globe down here, but really it's a flat plane intersecting the torus field. And then all of these concentric rings represent the planets. Here is the Moon, Venus, Mercury, Solus, Sol Invictus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and then this is Uranus. This is where the stars are, pinned to the dome. This corresponds with Jewish, Mayan, Egyptian, all cosmologies. There it is. The stars above, there's the sphere of Uranus, the fixed stars, then Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon, according to their orbits around the Earth, and how long they take to orbit the Earth, how long their cycle is completed. There it is there, you know, there's the tree of life. I don't know whether any of these are 100% accurate at all, and I'm not suggesting that, but we saw the science. It's provable, it's verifiable, repeatable, measurable, observable, and there's no denying it. It's just you got to put two and two together. There's the ladder at the North Pole leading to heaven. You go up, everything goes up. Here is hell. Below there are 7 planes of hell. There's Dante's version. There's the 7 planets, Moon to Saturn, then the dome, then the crystalline watery sea, then the primum mobile, and beyond that is the Empyrean. And it's biblical. There's the firmament, built on the first day of creation, Genesis chapter 1. The firmament of heaven to divide the day from night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. There it is. It's all there. There's the dome, there's the 7 planets. See, there's rings, outer rings. We saw the David LaPointe experiment showing that matter congregates, makes a space, so that would be Antarctica. Then there's more land and with water, then another space. There's an ancient Japanese or Buddhist map showing lands outside the flat earth beyond Antarctica. So Captain George Hubert Wilkins, who was a colleague of Admiral Byrd, Wilkins travelled 5,000 miles beyond Antarctica, according to his logbooks, and he said that there were lands beyond, unexplored by mankind. So how does all this trickery happen, folks? Well, I'll show you how it happens. There's Copernicus, a Jesuit. The Jesuits started only 40 years after Columbus came back with news of the confirming that the Earth is flat. And so all of these they're all coming back saying, yep, the maps are correct, it's all flat. And then the Jesuits came on. The black nobility funded Copernicus. You can see his hand gesture here. This is a Masonic Jesuit hand gesture, folks. When you see this, you know they are insiders. You can see Nick twice. Saint Nick. Who is Saint Nick, folks? It's the devil. It's Satan. Okay, so this is a satanic philosophy. His whole book was based on motion of the Earth, which never before was ever implied or suggested. Copernicus, he dedicated his book to Pope Paul III, who, when we look at Pope Paul III, we see that he was a Farnese. Okay? Who are the Farneses? Well, they pretty much control the Rothschilds, the Windsors, all of Latin America. Fidel Castro comes from... This family is related to Castro. Castro controls the Americas. He's a Jesuit. This family here created the Jesuits, okay, and the Counter-Reformation. Alessandro Farnese, Pope Paul III, he funded Nicholas Copernicus, and it is to Pope Paul III that Nicholas Copernicus dedicated De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, on the revolution of the celestial spheres. So he's actually talking about revolutions of the celestial spheres. He's not really including the Earth in here. So there might be some kind of redemption for this guy, but you'll see they all making the hand gestures. This guy here is responsible for a lot of evil that's ever happened. He created the Jesuits, the Bonacci family, and they were the conquistador families who conquered Spain, and they needed a globe. They could not allow the New World Order to begin based on the flat earth truth. They had to change times and seasons, as it says in the Bible. Yes, after this guy comes along Pope Gregory, who changes the calendar, times. Whereas this guy changed seasons. How? By bringing in false doctrines, the satanic globe. This guy also is responsible for the death of many great people, truthers in his time, and the Inquisition. They began the Inquisition. The Inquisition has never gone away. Changed its name in 1965 to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. That's the Inquisition, folks. It's still alive. Before that, it was called, it survived as part of the Roman Curia, the Vatican, the corporate, these guys are the CEOs of the corporate structure of the Vatican, basically, and they conquered the world. They stole land off everybody and they created the globe. In 1908, it was given the name of the Supreme Sacred Congregation of the Holy Office. Okay, that's the Inquisition. These guys started the Inquisition, folks, the Jesuits. And you can see here that Copernicus, the Jesuit, dedicated his false doctrine to Pope Alexander the Jesuit, because it's all a Jesuit lie. It's a Jesuit psyop. Here we have same hand movement. This is, no, that's Christopher Columbus, excuse me. Let me just grab that. Christopher Columbus, as you can see, Columbus comes from the Colonna family from Rome, and they were at war with the Orsini family, and they became the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, and the Guelphs became the Windsors, and the Guelphs also became the Rothschilds, the Orsini family. This family also are conquistadors. So this is how the deception began, really, with Christopher Columbus setting sail. The Colonna family. Columbus comes from the Colonna family, very powerful papal family in Rome, who conquered the Americas. Nicholas Copernicus. There's Isaac Newton. Now Isaac Newton is also in this club, this secret club of satanic. They needed him in the late 1600s to salvage this failing living earth. So, and along comes the right dude, Galileo Galilei. So he was also instrumental. Yeah, you can see the same hand signals. His most famous expression, "E pur si muove," it moves. He didn't lie. He knew what he was doing, betraying the ignorant masses to a satanic demon cult of pillaging and warring against all free nations with their false globe model. And what does Galilei mean? Well, this is the joke, you know, the joke's on you. Just like with Santana, with his model, Hebrew scholars, this is esoteric knowledge, to know the earth's flat. And the joke is on masters. And this is how they do things, like Nicholas Copernicus, Nick, Galilei. Why? This is singular, Galileo, which means to move. And Galilei means to move. It's a joke, folks. He's probably not even a real guy, you know. History has been etymology dictionaries with Galilei. This one says circle. Okay, the circuit of Galilee. The metaphysical meaning of Galilee means rolling, turning, a ring, a circuit, a band, rolling energy, momentum. Etymology of the name Galilee, meaning to roll, galal. And here's Strong's Concordance. When you go to Strong's Concordance, there it is. It tells you it's a circuit. Undeniable. So it's a big joke on humanity, the purpose for which to deceive humanity and to keep them in their prison planet, their prison globe. And they created a religion based on the globe. It's called globalism. The globalists and their agenda, 2021, 2030. And so they brought in the globe as a psyop, and now humanity are waking up because we've got infrared and Nikon 1000 cameras, and we've got all kinds of instruments that have proven that the Earth is stationary. Scientists are on board. Pilots are on board. They're seeing through the fraud. There's been a fraud perpetrated. Here is the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius de Loyola. Look at the hand signals.
Yeah. Wow.
Here is Martin Luther, the so-called Protestant of the same time that the Jesuits were founded. It's been known on the inside that Martin Luther was a Jesuit, folks. They created Protestantism. They created the brand that we have now, corporate, which all have their 501c3s, tax exemption, right? Because before that, true Protestantism was the Huguenots, the Socinians, the Waldenses, the Lollards, the Polish Brethren, the Socinians, the list goes on, the Waldenses. They were true Protestants. They were vegetarian, they were healers, they used astrology as recommended in the Bible, Job 38:32. Job, do you know the Mazzaroth? Because if you don't, you're a dunce. They created the false Protestantism based on a historical Jesus, whereas the true Protestants denied Rome's historical Jesus, which is the reason for Peter's pence, the Church of St. Peter and tax collection, based on a historical Jesus here on earth, whereas they were not literalists. They knew that Christ was eternal and it wasn't a historical true story, although there is complete truth in Christianity because it is a true religious science. So what they did was they corporatized it, but the true Protestants, what they call pagans now, they refused Rome's reason and excuse for a military and taxes, etc. And they accepted the Christ within. So the Jesuits were clever. They created this false Protestantism, printed Bibles on the Gutenberg press, and started teaching a literal doctrine of Jesus Christ. So they're all liars, they're all Satanists, they're all Jesuits. Calvin was a Jesuit. There's plenty of evidence, folks. Please look into it. These people started the Inquisition. I've included all the points that I wanted to make. So I'm finished. Folks listening, there's plenty of evidence scientifically that the Earth is a horizontal plane in respect to the heavens. Whether you're not satisfied with the explanations I've given here, maybe you can add to these explanations. Maybe you can show that the Earth has a squareness to it. There's a lot of models out there that I'm looking at as well, and keep my eyes and my mind open. The reason why I've stuck to this model up until now is that I can penetrate deeper the mechanics of the universe and syncretize all the cosmologies better with this model. So I just want to finish with a great video called Government Documents Admit Flat Earth. Please watch that, folks. Dean Oddle. All right, thank you.